No, BC. One of the things I was actually thinking about earlier this week was, or I guess last night, is, we talked about a lot about certain guys, whether it's Emmett, Dylan, obviously, the Quinn Clark story, the Luke Lindemeyer story, all that has gotten a lot of attention. Is there a guy that, as you've gone back and rewatched or kind of poured over box scores or thought about this game, that you've thought to yourself, we probably should have been talking about this guy, but he hasn't really come up?
I mean, we talk about everybody at some point around here, which is, I guess, the beauty of Nebraska. I'm trying to think if there's a good example, like somebody who popped. You're talking about someone on Saturday that you thought popped out that we didn't talk about quite as much as it was warranted.
Yes, I mean, who you thought popped out, not me.
Yeah,
but yes.
I don't have a great answer to that. That's a different answer. I think. See, Quinn Clark, I don't think's a great answer there because I do think he's been discussed, but I do think he hit people over the head who maybe don't consume the Husker product daily, which I can appreciate. And they're more about it's game time. I'm going to see what these boys have.
Mm-hmm.
And when they saw Quinn Clark catch that ball in stride and kind of step over a guy like nothing and just show his athleticism, it was a really good play. And I mean, yeah, it's just a small sampling, but as Holgerson said, that's a guy who's done that before, in practices. And so it was just a matter of translating that to the game. And so to your question, I always think about guys I think about the depth chart all the time and like in June and July. But sometimes you got to step back, think about, okay, a fan who just walked in and they're kind of getting their feel for this team, who's going to step up or really catch their notice. Quinn Clark definitely did that. And then, I think the younger backs in their small opportunities showed their juice. Like, I think you saw it with Mosey when he got out in the open field. It was like the 39, 40-yard play. And you're like, okay, that connects to what I've heard about him. And just like he's fun in space. And Mekhi Nelson had that nice play down the sideline. So kind of to come to a general summary, I thought the game was very useful because in the sense that it got some first out of the way for guys. Like it got Quinn Clark's first touchdown, Mekhi Nelson's first touchdown. It got guys on the field who it's like, oh, we didn't see them the last game, and that whole conversation. And it sort of shifted it forward. And now they can go build on it. And I think that was what was very useful about that game.
BC, from the depth stand, give me a couple of positions, if not players, who you think have gone from bodies to actually looking like they provide depth. Because somewhere along the line, like in our heads, we make that distinction.
Yeah. I mean, I think on the D line, Petchak's been quite a story.
Can we have depth on the D line if we don't love our D line yet? I get the consensus we don't really. We're still in limbo on our D line. Can we have depth yet?
Well, I don't know if you can have like great depth, but you can have like you can have more options available where you're like that guy can go in there and get something done. And they still have to prove themselves. Don't get me wrong, but I just think it's a really interesting story on the D line with like Petchak, Jalen George, who was in a green jersey most of the offseason, can help you. Gabe Moore was suddenly getting some snaps, and he was in a green jersey up until Tuesday. I just think that's a really interesting storyline. It's not answering your question probably, but of a group that has these guys that have a lot of potential, but they've just got to like maximize every day. Like that's the old cliche, but they truly do. Like the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday growth has to be good for them. And that can be a deep group over time. They're a work in progress, as they say, but it's interesting like how some of these names are starting to pop up that could give it depth. Besides that, I mean, I feel really good about the DBs, but I always did. So, I mean, like when they put in the guys who weren't the starters,
I like it. You could have said twos.
I did not.
The backups.
I didn't know. I didn't notice it. I didn't notice it. Like I I feel like that's a group where there are some guys who are pretty interchangeable, and that's what I thought they were going to be, though. But it's good that that's kind of proving out through the first couple of games.
So BC, as
You
your
and your ums.
I think he said was interesting. So,
I don't know.
just
I
trying to process the information. You're just mad because I called you a basketball player.
You're mad.
I thought my mic cut out for a second. You ever have that happen? Like, so I didn't think you guys were hearing me. And
I pretend to, and Ravi talks all the time.
No, when you're talking and you think like you don't know if you're being heard or you're on the air, that like you just start speaking more gibberish than I normally speak. So that's what that last answer, if it was gibberish, that was kind of like halfway through. I was like, am I even on this thing right now? So
is this thing on?
Yeah, it was that situation.
No, we would have started yelling at you, be like, hey,
all right, good.
We can't hear you.
All right, good.
We can't hear you. Start waving our arms and things. You know, it would have been a whole to do. You know, that's DB likes to make a scene sometimes. So
it's been that kind of morning, B. I feel like I say that 3 out of 5 days a week.
At least there's 2 good days in there. That's all right.
I know.
I mean,
usually a good batting average.
Usually days where I don't let him talk that much.
I think it's the 3 that are the good days. I don't know what you guys are talking about. BC, as you kind of look ahead to Houston Christian, I mean, I imagine we haven't done too much like game prep. Like, what do you do with a team like this where you go, okay, one of their games was against an NAI team that their record and schedule on their website only goes back to 2022, and it doesn't appear they've played or at least logged a whole season at any point in that time in Arkansas Baptist. And then you've got this super weird box score against Eastern Kentucky where they outgain them. They hold them like 100 yards of total offense, but they fumble it 4 times and lose the game. Like, how much are you actually thinking about Houston Christian? How much are you actually thinking about just what Nebraska needs to do and what you see out of them? Like, this is sort of an awkward week.
Yeah, it is. Because I hate to talk down an opponent or actually talk around an opponent. But I do think it's about Nebraska and just going out there and being that team like they were last week, just building on that where, okay, you're going to hear this storyline suggested. It's 11 a.m. You just won 68-0. Michigan's, down the road. Are you going to maintain your focus despite some of these items that people are going to list as to why you could have a sleepy performance? And so this can be an opportunity for them to show some real maturity in a game like this and this setup to just go like play to that standard they've been talking about. It's about what you're doing. And I love that line that Rhule had. I know the whole thing went viral, but about like a player from another team that's maybe a group of 5 or an FCS guy shaking your hand after the game. And this is so true, I think. Like, you need to have it be one of those deals where they do put their head down a little bit as they do it, because they know that you're just better, and okay, this is why it's Nebraska, and not a deal where the guy, and I think this happened in some games in the past, in last year and years before, like Northern Iowa, where there's probably some guys who walked over and shook hands from Northern Iowa last season, thought like, I can play with the guy I matched up against for some of those reps in that game. And so you don't want that. So that's what I'm looking for this Husker team, is to make it one of those handshakes, much like the Akron one probably was, where it's the other guys realize like, yep, there's a gap there. I see why these guys are playing at this level.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? As a guy that, trailed at the half against Wyoming, right? Yeah. At home, and a year in which we won a natty. You know what this one is about for me, for this team? It's emotional maturity. I will be thoroughly impressed, BC, if Nebraska can stay on the gas 2 weeks in a row playing against the best version of themselves.
Yep.
Like, that's because it's hard to do. Like, we weren't even good at it yet, and it almost got away from us. Like, I would be thoroughly impressed if this team, who hasn't won meaningful games in so long, could string together 2 weeks of being the best version of themselves and get better. Like, I mean, that's where it's at for me if I'm going to critique it, because that's what it's all about. At some point, it can't be about who you play, and that's to the good or to the bad. Like, if they stay on the gas this week, man, color me impressed, and I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, exactly. And more guys like just erasing first and getting some stuff done where it's like, okay, I made that step. Now let's do the next one. Like whether it's like a Cortez Mills catching a touchdown or something like that. Just different guys checking boxes in this game, playing at a high level, gaining confidence. And it's not unusual for them at this point to play in Memorial Stadium. They've had a couple cracks at it after this weekend. So that's all very useful, but I'm exactly with you. This is one of those games where you see how mature your football team is. It sounds like they've had a really good week of practice. Like Rhule really liked how they came in on Sunday and we're getting after the details. And it sounded like Holgerson yesterday was pretty high on how things were going, better than last week even. And so that's all promising. But now, of course, it's making sure you're ready for some brunch football.
I guess there's a certain degree of difficulty that's hard for me to like put into words when you know you have everything to lose. And the internal gain is something that people can't really measure.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes on a whole new
The gains are all
it takes on a whole new competitive thing inside the walls of that stadium that it's its own unique challenge.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I love when the guys who are, I'm talking in code around what Damon said earlier, the guys who are on the field first. I like when they,
they're called starters.
I'm just
Shut up,
messing with
Ravi.
you. I'm just messing with you. But I like when those guys also have that mission that's so evident. And I thought it was last Saturday. Like, I know how much everybody on this roster works. I want those guys to get 15, 20, 25 reps that don't play as much or won't maybe play as much in some other games. And obviously you respect your opponent and you don't go in just thinking like you're ahead 42-0, but that's exactly it. Going in like we're going to build this thing up and make it a game like last week where those guys do get that experiences and they can check those boxes. So that's what I want to see from that group who's out there as the starters. I just want to see them like hand the baton over again early and let those guys get their chances.
I asked this question, I don't know, it might have been the Sipple, so that doesn't count. But do you pay attention, to no, it might have been Sam. It might have been Sam. What's going on tactically in special teams, or do you just kind of look at the return and grade the results? Because I was telling Sam, I really like some of the concepts that they're trying to employ. And Nebraska's they missed a few on kickoff return, but we've seen it reap some dividends in the punt return game, where schematically I think they're pretty sound.
Yeah.
Do you watch like the block? Do you watch the whole evolution of it, or just the returner?
I probably watch the ball more, but I appreciate what you're saying, because obviously it doesn't happen. You don't get to 87 yards from Barney, 92 total, tops each of the last 4 seasons, which is an incredible stat in one night with your return yards. That doesn't happen unless you have guys doing their job, but also like, as you say, like some schemes and some things that are well drawn up. And the thing about it is they went into that game expecting that. So that's a deal where they saw, there was going to be opportunities there if you do your jobs. And I like that they came out of the first game in Kansas City too, and they weren't just patting special teams on the back only because Cunanan and Archie Wilson had a really good day, which they did. But it was more about, there was some good stuff with the kickers, but we left some returns out there and we got after these guys. And so I like that you're holding those guys accountable in weeks where there was a chance for that big play and maybe you missed it, and setting that tone of like, you guys can be the difference. What is it? 10 days from now, you guys can settle the score in a game like that, like by doing your job really well. And that has to be exciting for all those people involved. And I just think Mike Eckler's energy, his mind for it, and the way like he, even just like bringing in Archie Wilson and being way ahead of that, knowing exactly who he wanted to get and knowing how that was going to change the dynamic for special teams and how they could pin teams with it and all that stuff. he's just a forward thinker with that. And I think we're going to see the benefits as the season goes on. I'm not saying there's not going to be lumps, but you can tell there's a definite pep in the step with that group, and guys like Vince Genatone and Kamir Prescott was out there, and guys doing a good job that we don't talk about all the time.
BC is, and I might just be dumb here, but
Probably
this is one of the first times I've actually thought about, because you talk about punt returns and things like that, and I sort of just assume, yeah, you kind of just they block them up a certain way, and that's what it is, and then you see what you can do. Like, it's one of the first times I've actually thought about like think. Wow,
I told you.
I think about it a lot.
It's all right.
It's for one of the first times I've actually thought about, like, hey, if we want to block it up a certain way so that we're getting these gunners totally out of the picture and they're not even a problem, and then we're going to focus on this specific area of they're lining up their punt block or their punt protection this way, so we're going to do this instead. Like, it's the first time I've thought about it almost like a real defense and an offense in terms of blocking scheme, as opposed to just like, oh, they're special teams, they got to get back there and hopefully it can return.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you, Ravi, and that's the beauty of what they've got going over there and what they're trying to make I think a game-changing unit that doesn't just try to break even, but tries to break games open. Actually, no trying, Eckler would say, that just go do it. And so far, I mean, you have to be encouraged. It'd be one thing if we were just sitting here after 2 games just trying to force a narrative that, oh, I feel great about special teams because Mike Eckler's there, and you kind of sometimes that happens where it's like you're supposed to have this storyline, so you go with it. But we're seeing, like, so far the evidence that there's improvements there. I mean, just with they made big kicks and punts in the first game, and I don't know if they win that game if they don't do that. That's a pretty big deal. That's one game that was hanging in the air, and they pulled it out because they did some things right there. And then they came back. They said, yeah, but we didn't get enough with the returns. And I know the competition, all that, blah, blah. But they went out there and they had a night they haven't had in 5 years, returning the ball. And that counts for a lot. So, they've built it up in both sides. Now they do need to stop kicking the ball out of bounds with the guy's not named Kunan, and stop that. So there's still things to hit on, but
once coincidence, twice is a fluke. Let's see, 3 or more, they're trending. So let's
not see that anymore.
Well, so BC, let close with this, just because you don't really know. You're giving your halftime speech not because you ultimately think it's going to be on camera. You're giving the halftime speech because I think you think that's what your team needed, and he genuinely was pissed. But one of the things that I like that he's talking about when he says, we should make 52-yard kicks, or, we should go out and play like this, or we want to be like, for me, everybody talks about year 3 Rhule and what it means. And I said this in the offseason. He comes across like a guy that is now defending the program. That's what he wants the players to do, to defend the culture. When I hear him kind of lose his mind over what we think, it ranks differently on our importance meter, right? Until we play the right opponent. But it all matters in the grand scheme of things, because I think he truly is wanting to defend the culture. That's what we hear when we hear him say he's not all in on the special teams against Cincinnati, or he does want them to play. We read, because we're just sarcastic and cynical by nature. It's almost like that line in Jerry Maguire, right? We live in a cynical world. But I think he truly is trying to defend the culture, and that's what we hear.
Yeah, and I think he truly believes he's got a good football team that can hit a certain standard, and why would you not reach that bar no matter what's in front of you, no matter what it says on the score? I mean, you only get 12 regular season games, and we talk all year about this stuff, and we go to an open practice and we observe like every little thing, and like, oh, this guy has a quick first step and all that. It would be silly if you got to the games And every snap that a guy was out there didn't mean something to them, and actually to us kind of covering it. Like, we shouldn't just like take it for granted, that there's a football game in Lincoln, Nebraska at 11 a.m. on Saturday and it counts, like that. And so all those guys, like, yeah, every rep, they should be like, this is going on tape. This is going to be in front of my guys tomorrow, and it's got to be a good rep. You wouldn't half butt it during a Tuesday practice trying to win your spot. So why are you going to do it here? But I do like that, whatever you want to call it, it was a reminder. And there were some guys who were about to come into the game. Like, let's go now. This is your time. I don't want to see you acting like we're up 6 touchdowns, just play ball, play the snap in front of you and the man in front of you and do it well. So I really like the message. And I think it was pretty well received by the fan base, too, it seems like.
That is our guy, Brian Christopherson, Husker247. BC, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, B.